tonight we are thrilled to welcome Dana Manalang to celebrate the launch of her new book, Ropos and the Underwater Volcano, which we're all very excited about. Yeah! Dana has been working with underwater systems as an engineer in the Seattle area for over a decade, though her love of the sea goes back as far as she can remember. As mother of two, Dana enjoys sharing her enthusiasm for all things aquatic and robotic with her kids and anyone else who will listen. Her favorite part about working at sea is the thrill of the unknown. At any moment, exotic creatures or events can turn ordinary work days into extraordinary explorations. She hopes that Ropos and the Underwater Volcano conveys that sense of adventure to readers young and old. Now, the book in question is on the cube just behind you. You can purchase it at any register. The closest is in the tech center if you don't want to walk downstairs. Now, the store does close at 7. However, we can stay on as long as the event goes. We can have an exclusive after-hours event if we need to. However, one note is that the registers do close at 7. So there will be an announcement and a bell about 10 minutes before 7. So that might be while we're doing Q&A. That might be a good time to scuttle off and buy a book if you haven't done so already. Now, finally, if you need parking validated, come see me. I do have the magic stamp. But that's it from me, so please join me in welcoming Dana Manalang.
Thank you, Lily, and thank you guys for coming. I know a lot of you, which is great. It's good to see your faces, and it just means a lot that you're out here supporting this effort. And you know, this is something I never thought I would do, become a children's book author. If you had asked me several years ago, I would have told you no way. And so I thought instead of really getting into the story, I'd tell you the story of the story tonight. I'm not going to talk for that long, and then we'll get on to some Q&A. And while I'm talking, I will not be offended. If you guys get hungry, there's some food over there. My husband, Joseph, there's a man on the food table over there. And Eve and Katie G over there have some crafts and coloring. And so if the kids or adults, you feel like some coloring, you know, the adult coloring books are big these days, just go for it. I will not be offended. So the one thing I want you to take away from this story is that this is not, by all means, a solo effort. There are lots of people involved without whom this would not happen, and many of them are here tonight, so I will enjoy pointing them out as we go through this story. And it's really going to start many, many years ago, before underwater volcanoes were even something that I considered. So back in the old days of oceanography, and so it's appropriate that I actually was given this slide by Mr. John Delaney here, Professor Dr. John Delaney, who, and the story actually goes back to a time when oceanographers, in order to study the ocean, had to take boats out into the, you know, spend a day on a boat, do some science, if the weather cooperated, hopefully collect some data, maybe leave behind a sensor or two, and then come back to shore and wash, rinse, repeat, except you could only do it a few times a year because that's the only times that the weather would cooperate. And so there were a few forward-looking individuals, ocean researchers, who said, you know what, we're getting a little frustrated with how quickly the pace of learning about all of these amazing processes in the ocean were going. And so Dr. Delaney here was one of those people. And so he embarked on a mission to put an extension cord into the ocean, a cable, so that we could power instruments, leave them there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Now, it only took him about 25 years to get the U.S. government to agree. The National Science Foundation ponied up some money, and then off UW got this project to install a cabled ocean observatory. And it actually turned out that that timing was great for me, because I was looking for a job right around the time that this project ramped up, and so I was thrilled to come and be part of this team. It was an amazing opportunity. I love my job. It's been a great almost 10 years now that I've worked on it, and so you're looking at this map, and this is it. This is what we do. There's a shore station in Pacific City, Oregon, and outstretched from that are 2 cables. And those little red dots are places where there's instrumentation, nodes where we can instrument the ocean and watch, and even have things like live HD streaming in real time to shore. It's an amazing program. If you want to know more about it, there's some postcards floating around at the craft table. Take one and then go look up Interactive Oceans. There's amazing stuff there. But back to this book. So it was as part of this team that I got to go on my first ROV cruise. And so it happened to be the ROV Ropos, which is operated by the Canadian Scientific Submersible Facility out of Victoria. And so as part of this cruise, we're on the boat, and you just get to watch this operation. And so many of you have probably seen the movie Titanic, and there's people are in this dramatically dark room watching this screen. Let me tell you, that is not dramatized for Hollywood effects. It is really like that. This is Ropos, so this is the actual vehicle Ropos, and it looks a little bit like the character on our book. We might have simplified it a little bit. It's got thrusters, it's got lights, and a really great camera, and it's got these manipulator arms that carry out scientific missions in the ocean. And this is what it looks like when we're sitting on the boat. So it really is, there's this drama. You're just sitting there, and you never know what's going to pop up next. Having eyes on the bottom of the ocean is just an amazing thing. So I'm going to now switch paths. So they're in parallel to this amazing work that was going on. There was some other things going on in my life. So as the cable was being birthed, so I don't know, where's Kara and Elena? Can you guys stand up back there? Oh, they're so those are my daughters, Kara and Elena, and so And so, yeah, and they're actually watching a live stream of one of the Interactive Oceans webcasts. And so they probably didn't know what they were seeing or what they were going to experience later, but they got started pretty young. And so, and I have to say that throughout this time, clearly since I was gallivanting around on boats in the ocean, there was somebody who was holding it all together at home. And so this is Joseph. Yeah, there he is. Definitely deserves a round of applause for that. And so he's a great dad, great husband. Thank you, Joseph. So back to how this book happened. So, you know, when I started, as the girls got older, and John and Deb Kelly, who also led these expeditions, one of the things that they were really intent on doing is making sure that we had this treasure trove of images and videos that we could share with the public. And so I was ready when my kids were in preschool and I got to go to my first career day as a parent. And so I went to preschool and I showed them all this cool underwater video and pictures, and they were like really into it. And so that's really what got me thinking, hey, we've got to find a way to reach these younger learners because they understand this stuff and it's just a matter of exposure. And so now John and Deb and others were well known for having some of the best graphics in the oceanographic community, I would say, and much of that was thanks to one colleague of ours. His name was Mark Stormer. And what you could do is you could take an idea to Mark, and then a couple days later he would turn it into something way more amazing than you imagined it ever being. And so I know John has experienced that. And so I went to him and I told him, Mark, you know, I have this idea. We have to use robots, and we have to, you know, do something really exciting to share this kind of material with preschool kids and elementary school kids. And so about 3 days later, he sent me this. Right? Oh, wow. And so when you have someone like that who really believes in an idea and a vision of yours, it just you have to keep going with it. So unfortunately, Mark passed away. He was not with us to see the completion of this book, but his colleague Hunter hopped in and did an amazing job doing the illustrations. And I hear he had a little help from his son Hyde. So there's Hunter and Hyde. And so you'll get to talk to them later. You can ask him questions about how he did his magic. And so I guess I just want to wrap up. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking tonight. We can chat and you can ask us some questions. But I just want to wrap up by talking a little bit about the ocean and exploring the ocean. So, one of the things that I think has captured the kids when I have talked to them, I've been to my kids' first and second grade classrooms, so they're always the guinea pigs, right? And their teachers have been, they go along with it. And so, one of the things that's hard to appreciate is just the vastness of the ocean. It makes up, I've read, 95 or more % of the living space on our planet. And 3/4 of the volcanoes on our planet are actually in the ocean. And most of them, the ones that don't have a cabled array on them, could erupt and nobody would even know it was happening. And so we have explored as humans only about 10% of this vast resource on our planet. And so one of my goals with this book is to get the excitement going and to talk about the technology that we use and to acquaint young kids with these ideas and with the excitement and the enthusiasm that comes with exploring and discovering and learning how these processes that affect all of us work. And so with that, I'm gonna finish my spiel here, and then I want Hunter to come up, and then we'll take a few questions if you guys want to ask us anything, and then I want to give you time to. We have all that food, so please eat it. I don't want to take it home with me. And then go do some crafts because Katie G and Eve look like they are ready to do some serious coloring over there. So, and that's all. Thank you for coming. Is there any questions? Back there,
yes.
Yes.
So you said that they could erupt underneath the ocean and we wouldn't even know about it. What's the scale of the eruptions underneath the ocean compared to like when we think about a volcano erupting in Hawaii this year? What's the magnitude and the scale? How big is that eruption?
I feel like there's a number of people who are probably more qualified in this room to answer that, but I'll give it a shot. So Axial Volcano, which is the one that the cable array studies, has erupted actually 2 times in the last decade. The caldera itself is about 7 kilometers by 3 kilometers. And we found lava flows north of the caldera and up to 120 meters thick with new lava after each eruptions. And the event itself, we saw evidence that there was high temperatures for 20 to 20 plus days. Starting with the eruption event and then moving beyond that. And so we've got some ideas on how to get other kinds of robotics in those systems to really investigate that and learn more. There's definitely outstanding questions there. And anything to add, Dr. Delaney?
That's an A+.
Okay. Yes?
How long is the tether?
Oh, that is a really good question. And so they can actually change the length of the tether depending on how deep the ROV is diving. And so the deepest that we dive is about 3,000 meters. So that's like almost 2 miles deep in the ocean. And so the tether actually has to be much longer than the depth that the ROV is diving. And so it can be about 10,000 meters long. So somebody do a quick calculation of feet, right? So several miles long, right? Yeah. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Could you go back to slides?
Oh, yeah. No.
Oh.
Oh. We wanted to point out that 2 of the people in this.
That's right. Anything else? Yes.
Can you talk about your collaboration and how you decided words, pictures, illustrations, like photos, illustrations, how that all kind of came together?
Yeah, well, I can start from my part. So So I had kind of I had written this story, and I had actually taken a few different approaches to it until we got to I got to this rhyming couplets, and somehow it just felt right. And so that's how the story came about. And then I came and brought that to Hunter and said, well, I know we've got all of these images of the seafloor. We have to use those. We have to use the real ones because they're so amazing. But we need this character that's really engaging. And so then he had to take it from there.
Yeah, so we basically wanted to humanize Ropos so kids could identify with him and learn more effectively through that. And so, yeah, just took his eyes and blew them up and made his arms bigger and made him fun colors. And
That's the Ropos. Wait,
Yeah.
there he is. That's the one.
yeah.
It's a female, right?
It's
No.
an it. It's an it. It's a robot.
Yeah, and Nick was instrumental too. I used a 3D model to get the perspective, and then basically draw the model in the right perspective based on his model. And so, shout out to him on that. So, yeah, was that? Did I answer the question?
What's next?
That's a good question. So, so some of that depends on you. There's been some great support for this book so far, and so part of this is a proof of concept. Can we take this model of storytelling and robotics and science and get it out there? And is there is there a draw to that? And if there is, and people buy it, then we can afford to make more. So, and who knows? There's maybe some other formats like a video game, say. Yeah. So, yes, sir.
Do you go to local schools and talk about the book?
So far, I've been to all of my kids' classes, right? but yeah, so actually I have a couple of assemblies coming up, and I'm receptive. So if anyone has a school or a class and they want me to come talk about being an engineer or what the story is about, plate tectonics, underwater volcanoes, robots, I'd love to come do that. Yeah. Yes?
What's the focus of your work as an engineer?
So my focus has been on the instrumentation, all of the instrumentation that we use to make measurements in the water. So some on the seafloor, some up in the water column, and making sure that we can connect those. So I'm, I guess, what you'd call a system engineer. So I make sure that we can put things together and they're going to work. And so far, they're working. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Oh, there's more.
If you drew the analogy to the tether, to apron strings, what are you going to do about cutting the apron strings?
That's a loaded question. So John happens to know. So Ropos is an ROV, a remotely operated vehicle. And that means that there's a pilot, somebody with joysticks and computers sitting on the boat while Ropos, the robot, is in the water, and they have this tether to connect to it all the time. Now there's another type of vehicle that's called an AUV, an autonomous underwater vehicle, and that doesn't have a tether. It just swims around because you pre-program missions into it. And so, so one of my previous careers was operating AUVs, and I hope that with the cable array in place, we can start putting vehicles like that in the water and leave them there so they can run around and do their missions and see what's happening when the volcano is erupting. In an autonomous way, and then send us back all the data after the fact. Yes?
Do you have a favorite discovery up to this point? Something you've seen?
Oh my goodness. Wow, I mean, to me, every time, so I mean, I'm an engineer, but every time we come across, some amazing seascape with these rock formations, there's these ledges, it's just amazing. And then these creatures, I mean, you're just kind of hanging out down there. We do work, right? So the ROV is plugging in a cable or something, and then off on the side we see this amazing creature. And so things like, you see a Dumbo octopus in this picture. I love octopi. Is that the plural? And so they're just amazing to just sit there and watch. Hydrothermal vents are just covered with tube worms, and they're teeming with life. And if you don't just zoom in and watch it for several minutes, like you start seeing that there's all of this interaction going on there. There's this whole chemosynthetic ecosystem. So I gave you like 3 or 4 answers there, but I love them all. Right? Yeah. All right.
I have a photo op request.
A photo op request,
Yeah.
yes.
With this slide up, will the 2 of you stand very close together, right between the octopus?
All right, everybody else, you can go and eat.